Welcome to PUENTE Lab, a podcast where we have conversations around mental health. I'm your host, Dr. Jonathan Martinez, professor in the Department of Psychology at California State University, Northridge. My Puente Research Lab focuses on addressing mental health disparities in care for underserved communities, particularly for Latino families. The goal of our podcast is to create a bridge between science and the community. Today's guest is Fernando Jaramillo. He's actually my cousin. We're taking a different approach to today's podcast. In previous podcasts, we've had guests that are mental health professionals or have been connected with the mental health sector in some way. Today, we want to talk to your everyday community person to really get their perspective around some of the topics we've been talking about and see how they may differ from previous views. Welcome, Fern.
Hey, John.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So just to get started, let's tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you do for a living?
Real estate professional. And it's always hard to say, like, what I guess started as doing transactional work as an agent, helping people buy, sell houses, and also loans. I've always been a loan broker. And then the last, 7 years, been more on the investor side. So buying properties, fixing them, selling them, and some of them buying them, fixing them, keeping them.
How does one get into that type of profession?
Younger people, when they ask me, they always ask me, how should I get started? Or maybe not younger, but 25 to 30. And I started when I was a kid, 18, 19 years old. And it was just happenstance. And luckily, I was living at home. So I was being supported by my parents. And I ended up kind of dropping out of college during the same time I was starting real estate. I don't want to say real estate caused me to drop out of college, but it was kind of gave me that other path.
Right.
But if I didn't have my parents and live at home and, they paid for my car, for everything, I don't know how you would get started in real estate because I needed like 2 years to get off the ground.
Right, because
when people ask me how to get started, I say start as a kid.
You were doing this right out of high school, right?
Yeah.
And you kind of mentioned it too. Like we took two different paths. Education was always important to our parents, and like from a young age too.
We almost started the same because it was out of high school, go to college for engineering degrees.
Right.
Because I went for an engineering degree.
Same here.
Cal Poly.
Right.
Just like you did, but it wasn't even, I guess, what I was meant to do, I guess.
Well, neither was I, because I remember like that was, we think of like our parents like coming from Colombia and they're like, okay, education's important. You got to go to school. Grades are important. And then when it came to like, okay, now you're graduating high school, like that's as much as education they had. So they couldn't really give us, guidance or tools on like applying for college. All it was like, mijo, ¿qué vas a hacer? Oh, engineering.
Yeah.
You're going to be an engineer, right? Like, I was like,
but
okay.
They pushed it, right? They definitely pushed the higher education because they never did it.
But specifically, like it was engineering, right? Of like I don't know anything about
doctor
computers.
Or lawyer, right? But I'm sure somewhere along the path, someone
told
this
them,
guy's not gonna be a doctor or lawyer,
or someone just told them like go into computer engineering.
Yeah.
Where like I know how illiterate I am when it comes to computer. I know nothing about that. So it was like this shock of like going. I'm like, I don't know anything about this. What the hell am I doing?
Yeah. First year was not doing good at Cal Poly after being like a good student my whole life. I guess that's where this mental health, comes in.
Right.
College just wasn't, I felt dumb, I guess. It's so weird. Mm-hmm. I went there feeling dumb, especially my math classes, which I used to kill it in math.
Right.
Like as a little kid, I was an honor student. And then even in high school, it was kind of, I forget, but I was always kind of like semi-advanced.
Came naturally.
Yeah, felt natural.
Yeah.
I thought it did.
Right.
And then for whatever reason at Cal Poly, I forgot exactly what class it was, but I remember just thinking like, for whatever reason, I can't pay attention and I can't get this. And then once I fell behind, I specifically remember a class too. Once I fell behind that class, then the fear kicked in of going to the next ones. And then that's kind of started like the domino of falling out of college because I didn't go to the next class, walking up to that class and that fear of like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know, I'm way behind. And that's kind of, it's exactly how it started, the domino falling out. But luckily, that's where real estate was already kind of in my life, it was kind of getting in my life. So I was able to start, focusing on getting a real estate license.
I could feel my heart beating, just that feeling too, because like that's what happened my first quarter at UC Irvine. It was like, oh, you're naturally like, coming from this school. It was like, I was a smart kid.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, you go off to college and then started like calculus courses and chemistry courses. And I'm like, I don't know any of this shit. And I don't know how to do this. And it was like this fear of like, I remember, you have 2 exams and that's it, a midterm and a final. And like I messed up on the midterm and I failed, and then I was so ashamed and I didn't want to go back, and that I didn't even show up for the final. So I was just like, oh, I'll just take the F, like whatever. Which was,
or the W,
or the what? I didn't even withdraw. I should have withdrawn. I was too scared to withdraw.
You have to actively withdraw.
Well,
right.
Because then I was on financial aid. So if you withdraw, you are now need to give back the financial aid they gave you because you need to be a full-time student.
Yeah.
So to me, I'm like, I would rather take the F than take the withdraw, because if I owe money back, then my mom and dad are going to know.
They're going to alert your parents.
Exactly. But you kind of mentioned yourself, and I know you even kind of always jokingly label yourself as like, you're a college dropout.
Yeah.
Right? Which has such a negative connotation.
It's weird because it's just recent. Well, maybe last 10 years. So I'm 42. So like from 32 on, where I label myself college dropout, because before I was kind of more would fight it, throughout my 20s, especially like that term, I didn't even use it. But I don't know, I started to more embrace it just because I think it people understand it, I guess, better, even though it shouldn't be. It's a negative label, but it gives other people, because I meet a lot of young people, especially real estate guys. A lot of them are college dropouts.
Yeah.
Right. That's like real estate has a low barrier of entry.
Right.
And when I meet the young guys, they ask about the investing side of it, because they kind of meet me through flipping properties, and they see like, oh, you're the guy flipping this property, and they all want to know. And I remember being like them too. Mm-hmm. So I do bring out college dropout because I kind of know most of them are like that. And
I think you're at a point too in your life in which you're obviously successful, right? Like and have your needs met. Whatever. Like what I mean is like you're doing well for yourself.
Yeah,
right?
The goal was to accomplish, to get to higher education so you could support yourself and do all that. Yeah.
But that was the only thing I knew of, like, oh, you go to college, and then once I figured out engineering wasn't for me, it was like I switched to psychology, and then my parents like, what are you gonna do with that? And then there was this pressure of like, oh, if I want to go in psychology, that means I need to go to graduate school. So then that created this whole other period of time where it's like, all right, you got to go get a master's and a doctorate. And then meanwhile, I'm looking at like other people, like my friends and family, and I'm like, they're already like in their career doing stuff.
Yeah.
But this like narrow view of like, oh, you're a college dropout, and that must mean like you messed up and all these things.
Yeah.
Like that's really the
that
people I talk with.
It was always hard for me to accept, like, if you messed up, but it kind of drives you because of that. I didn't want to be a mess up, right? So I think I always give that some credit. I didn't want to let my parents down, especially being the kid that, like we were saying, they're all about higher education. Well, one way my parents thought, well, I shouldn't say thought, but their mindset was put him in good schools. Oh, let's put him in this private school.
Right.
And started since he was 4 years old. So I was in private school my whole life. And there was a lot of time when I was like, man, I feel so bad because, they spent all this effort about school, private school. They spent all this money.
Right.
And now I dropped out of college. Not only dropped out, I got kicked out because I just failed out, where they send the letters and I'm hiding them.
Something that I know we talk about a lot is like these pressures that students have that may not want to, or have a desire. It's not that they're not cut out for it. I think anyone's cut out, provided they have like the proper support system and other things to like pursue it. But maybe that's not what their end outcome or goal is.
Maybe it's not what they want to do to earn an income, right? Maybe they liked it, right? But now I started tying to, damn, I'm going to become this professional and this is what I got to do to earn an income. That might kill it. I get scared, like going back to the question of when you asked me how do you get started in real estate, I kind of get scared for people when they're asking me and they're like 27, right? Because I'm like, I don't know, actually. I don't want to tell them, but in my mind, I'm like, if I was starting where you're at right now, oh, you just got married, right? And your kid's on the way, like I wouldn't be able to do it.
It's true.
I mean, not the way I started, right? Like the way I started, you need help big time. You need to have a roof over your head paid for and a car paid for and all that.
What made like your parents like okay with that decision of like not going to college and
going back to that, we were so fearful of them finding out, right? So they found out about Cal Poly, I forgot how, whatever, a letter. It was like denial.
You didn't catch it? You didn't get the letter in the mail before
eventually, it was like too much.
Right.
And then I'm not going to be able to go back in the next quarter or whatever because this was already officially kicked out, right?
Yeah.
Whatever that letter was.
Right.
But I remember it was all like excuses by me and like denial, right? So it was kind of like, okay, well, now you're going to go to Mount Sac, the community college. You can still save this, salvage it, as opposed to having like the real conversation. And then Mount Sac, same thing happened. Basically got kicked out of there too. I got on probation for not going. I stopped going. I was going more to real estate office at that time. That's when it started like melding more.
Yeah.
And then I even signed up for a third one again, had the conversation with my parents. And then Citrus College, signed up there. I actually went finally, like, I'm going back to college. Like, I'm doing it, right? I think I was off for like half a year. And then like, I remember okay, I'm doing it for real this time, to go back to them and tell them, and all right, they're supportive and good job.
Right.
They were never like, good job, go figure something else out in real estate. That hadn't come yet. But it was kind of after Citrus, I signed up. I think I didn't even go to the first class, or I went to the first one, and then that's it. Right. And then I did have, I don't remember exactly how, but the heart-to-heart with them. And it was such a relief when they were just like, all right, like, forget school then.
Right.
Right, like, forget it, but just, focus on this. Like, try your hardest, learn, and let us know whatever you need. Like, we'll try to help you. And that was huge. But it took forever to get there.
Yeah.
And a lot, right? It took a lot of failure to just get there.
Because I always thought of you as a nerd.
Yeah, I liked getting good grades. I do remember that.
Yeah.
And I expected it, I think, because when I became an honor roll student, right, which whatever that means, 3.5 or whatever when you're a kid.
Yeah.
I remember I like expected that every year now.
Yeah.
And even amongst my classmates, I was like, oh shit, I have to get it now because I've always gotten it.
Right.
But that kind of messed me up a little.
How so?
It made me, well, maybe not just that, but it made me think I was like smarter school-wise than I really was. Like, I was probably pretty smart, whatever, regardless, but let's just say school-wise.
Right.
And then I struggled more in high school.
Yeah.
And I know why. I was kind of more like, well, I'm smart enough I could catch up, or I could do this. I was kind of like, because I started to enjoy, that's where my ADHD kicked in. I was getting distracted by the other aspects of that age, where it's social aspects, friends. I was like infatuated with friends and girls and this whole new environment that I was like, I loved it. That school was getting in the way.
Right.
But because I was smart, I was always, or in my head, I was smart, right? I thought I was so smart. I remember I would put so many things off too. And I would actually always save myself.
Yeah. I think, things have shifted now with like, not that it's cool to be smart, but like there's a lot more pressure on students.
Yeah.
Especially in like elementary school, junior high, high school, to like get good grades. Yeah. And I think that also contributes to kind of like mental health struggles in kids, especially kids that
exposes it more, I guess.
Exposes it more, or kids that, maybe struggle with ADHD or other like attentional issues. And it's like, the label comes and it's like, oh, now you're not performing well.
Yeah.
And like, what can we do to make sure that you're paying attention in the classroom and other things? And I think that's where sometimes there's a controversy around like ADHD and like medication, for example.
Yeah.
Is that the easy fix of like medicating someone, and are they at an advantage? Where like the reality is, like, there's kids that suffer from ADHD. Some may need medication, some may not. Medication's beneficial, but sometimes medication's overprescribed too.
Yeah.
But also there's like these pressures to perform like
that's
academically
scary, right?
well.
I do think about that now, like ADHD, because I diagnosed as a later adult, but it all makes sense looking back at the childhood, right? The typical report cards of not living up to potential and disturbing class and all that as the negative.
Yeah.
And then with like straight A's and 1B or something as the positive. So it was kind of, that always saved me. And then I was in a little private school, so we were like a family, right? It was like the same 28 kids since we were like 4 or 5 years old all the way to 8th grade,
which is a good environment.
And the same teachers and stuff too,
yeah,
so they kind of knew me as that kid, right? Because I would be that kid, that had some of the cracking jokes in the middle of class when you shouldn't, and the impulsive stuff. Not as bad as my other friend, who he was medicated, and I didn't know this till later, but I mean, I knew he would always go up to the office, right? We all knew. And it was Ritalin, and it's kind of interesting. It was just perceived that he was I don't know, sick, I guess you could say.
Yeah,
crazy. Actually, as kids, wrong. We all thought he was a little crazy, even though he really wasn't. I mean, me and him were pretty close friends, and we were probably similar. But he didn't get good grades, but he was the medicated one. But anyways, going back to what I was going to say, it seems scary now that there's more information out there as a parent, because I feel like it would be pushed more. Medicating, a kid when you're having behavioral issues in school.
And that's the thing, like and something with ADHD, like it's so variable. Like some people have the inattention piece.
Yeah.
Some people have the hyperactive impulsive piece. The hyperactive impulsive piece are the things that you observe that you can see, and you're like, oh, they're acting out. they're hyper, they're getting out of their seat, they're, this kind of disruptive behavior.
They're fighting on the playground.
Fighting, other things. And then there's some kids that they just have struggle with sustaining attention. Maybe they're forgetful. For sometimes medication is like indicated and it's helpful. And it's like, to some, it's like night and day of like, wow, now that I'm taking this, like now I can actually finally pay attention and like do the work I know that I'm supposed to be doing and live to my potential. And then there's some that don't need it, right? And then you wonder too of like, is there a tendency maybe to overdiagnose ADHD if someone is struggling with their grades or other things? Because ADHD is not about intelligence. Like we know, like there's brilliant people, straight A students, but like you said, there's still like this behavioral issue.
I guess it's more about the behavioral, because that's probably when it comes up, right? When it's disrupting the class, it's hard for a teacher. Right. So then that teacher needs to have that conversation with the parents.
Yeah.
And I've heard that, because I've heard that angle where a teacher that's trying to teach 30 students, you know, has that ADHD kid that just kind of won't, that interrupts a lot, and if technically affects everyone else's learning.
Yeah.
And then that teacher goes to a parent and tells them that. I mean, I guess I could see how.
Well, that's where a lot of times,
like, just give them, what kind of medication can I give them? Like, oh, there's medicine for that.
We all have symptoms of something, of different mental health issues, but there also has to be this, what's called like functional impairment. Like, does it impact your ability to be successful at work?
Yeah.
Does it impact your ability to perform at school? Does it impact your home life? Does it impact your social relationships? And I'm like, if those are taken care of, like, well, is there even like a mental health issue, even though, we
That's
have
where
symptoms?
It could impact, let's say it was something I'm getting into more now in career-wise. Real estate is trying to develop, right? Buy something, tear down, and build a building.
Right.
But a traditional path to that, and I actually know of some people that have taken this path and are doing real well, is go get your master's degree in real estate development. And they have it. Like USC actually probably has one of the best local programs around that. And anyone that goes through that, and a lot of them do have family stuff that are in it, but anyone that goes through that, they do get to like a super high level in real estate development eventually, like by the 10th or 15th year. But if you think that's the only way, then I can totally see, like, say that was my dream, right? Kind of what I'm trying to do right now. But if I thought that was the only way, then that kind of would be a lot of anxiety. Like, shit, I'm failing out of school. That means I'm never going to get this master's in real estate development. That means I'm never going to be able to build anything.
Right.
Which is not true, but...
Because there's all these paths to this eventual... I can totally see how that... I remember the days where I'd be sleeping in my... I'd go to school, but I would just sleep in the car in the parking lot. But I would start thinking, like, am I a loser? Right? Because now I'm failing out of Mount Sac. This was more Mount Sac, the community college. And then I was like, fuck, am I a loser? You know, this is like the definition of a loser, right? This is what my parents would kind of tell me, if you don't do anything, because I didn't have like some good job or anything either. You know, when I think of like strengths of like, you know, my friends or family, it's like, well, a lot of it is like this resiliency and like this grit or like this hustle.
The mind comes into that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because if we think we're failures and then...
you're not going to hustle like that.
Yeah. And then if you are struggling with a mental health issue, like that's many times needs to be addressed to then, be able to tackle these other things. And that's something that like, all family has different mental health issues. Like we know in our family, like maybe ADHD runs in our family. Yeah. We also know we have cousins diagnosed with autism, with schizophrenia, just like any other, just like what we see out in the community. Like our family's not immune to that. Right. But I think, at least for me, now that I've gone through this field of psychology and I'm a doctor and I reflect back, I'm like, oh, some of those things I was experiencing before, maybe that was like anxiety or something. Like that's what was going on with me. Or maybe if I was like drinking too much, maybe I was socially anxious in that situation and I was using that as a crutch to feel better, right? For you, like when you look back at your experiences, like in, let's say, right out of high school or something, like what would you tell old Fern of like, now that you know what you know now?
I guess it depends on what aspect, but like on the mental health aspect, I think just being aware of it and somehow figuring out how to tell the younger self not to stigmatize, to learn how to build that, work on it, right? Since you're young, just like it's like, you know, we got into lifting weights and it's kind of that age, you know, just
Right.
talking to one of the guys here, he's 19. After we were talking a lot about lifting weights, and then I'm
Right.
like, how old are you? 19. I'm like, oh, no wonder he's so like passionate about it right now, because I remember that age.
Yeah.
And it would be cool if somehow, I don't know, the message could come across that, hey, you could work on your mental strength and health the same way you work on your physical.
Right.
And it's going to like give you all these advantages later on. Maybe you're not going to notice it now. You'll connect the dots later. But it's not, I don't know, it's not only for people that have problems. Because that's kind of what it is, right?
Right.
Like when you talk about mental health, like your podcast, I
Right.
don't know, but initial right off the bat, most people think like, okay, maybe I'll recommend that to my sister who has a son who has problems in school.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Of like it's a problem behavior to talk about mental.
As opposed to let me recommend it because it's empowering to learn this stuff, because it's going to help you, which that's what real estate is real good in, because we have a lot of that in our industry, because there's no like standard way to let's say just become a real estate agent, right? That's something a lot of people could get into, but there's still no standard curriculum. There is only to get your license, but there's no standard curriculum on how to earn a living doing it, you know, how to become successful, how to get clients. There's no standard. It's a bunch of competitors trying to teach you marketing stuff and sign up for my course, and some of them suck, but a lot of them are very beneficial. I don't want to say my industry puts out a lot of successful people, but real estate is one of those industries that saves a lot of people that did not get their education, but they can still make higher education, you know, type of money and living and have that kind of good life that the doctor and lawyer has.
Right.
But without going, everyone knows like real estate is probably one of the paths. But that has a lot to do with it, because there is actually like hidden mental health being built up in all these agents. Because it's funny. One of the first things you learn is just embrace failure, because you're going to fail a lot.
Yeah.
So you better get good at that. And it kind of sounds weird. It did to me as a kid.
Right.
I'm like, what? You know, I was always competitive and I like to win a lot.
Yeah.
I won a lot in soccer and video games and whatever. Right. My mind thought I won a lot.
Yeah. Because we get taught to almost be like this perfect person a lot of times. Of like you can show signs of weakness and you can't fail and you can't do things. And like these weren't things that my parents told me actively, but it was just more of like this pressure that we put on ourselves of like, we can't let anyone know we're struggling, or we can't.
Yeah.
And when I look
falling
back
off the path.
Yeah. And when I look back on it, I'm like, oh man, I was such a scared kid sometimes, of like even like with sports, it was like I'd let the anxiety take over. It was like, just have fun, go out there, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I like playing basketball, but like then you put me in a situation where it's competitive
and stuff.
Yeah, then I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go hide in the corner and like not do anything. And you know, something I really actively think about now is, yes, for some people there's diagnosable mental health disorders, and for some people that might mean they need to go to a professional, you know, mental health setting to get help.
Yeah.
It might be psychotherapy, it might be medication, whatever. And for some segment of the population that works. But then for other people, they might be struggling in some way, but there's just different ways of tackling that, whether it's through mindfulness or sport, whatever their outlet is, talking to others,
the awareness
support
comes
systems,
in.
awareness around it, right? And really, like, that's the goal of like what we do in our lab. Is what I hope to do is like spread awareness around mental health topics, so that people have and can make informed decisions. Like for some people, it might just be having conversations around mental health, letting their parents know that they're struggling.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that they have a diagnosable disorder. Maybe it doesn't mean that they need like professional help. But I also want them to know there might be a point in which they might need an intervention and a professional person to actually help and assist. Because I think that was something that, I don't know, was missing when we were growing up, is just having the conversation.
Yeah. It helped me, but it happened later in life. But I think, what was I, about 28, 29, when I finally went to a psychiatrist. Was that who you go to? Psychiatrist?
Yeah.
The ones that prescribe?
Yeah.
And then he did prescribe Concerta, right? So I got diagnosed after taking all the childhood paperwork with the grades, the report cards, all the signs, right?
Yeah.
It fit in. And then we started on Concerta. The good thing about that was it showed me, it kind of opened my eyes. And I only lasted, I think, 2 months on it, because it was all these other negative, well, not too much negatives, but just changes you a lot, right? So when you're 30 years old and then you've never taken anything like that, you know, to focus.
Right.
And then you take something that does open your eyes, like, oh shit, okay, this is how it is to be focused. And these are the things, it just educated me even more. Like, these are the things you're not doing. when you're focused. So then if you get better at some of those things, maybe you don't need the medicine. And I kind of got to that because I was always afraid. I'm like a skeptic of big pharma and stuff too. Not for any specific reason, but it's just like my natural inclination.
Right.
But the setting of going to the pro and talking to him, all that, I mean, it was super beneficial because it did open my eyes to, I don't know, what the other side looks like.
Right.
But I don't think I could have handled it. For sure, I couldn't have handled being on medication long term.
Yeah. And, for some people, like that's where they see benefits and they take medication. But we also know medication could have certain side effects too. Yeah. And, we want to maximize those benefits and minimize the side effects. But some people don't respond well to it. And that doesn't, like this, and you were kind of talking about big pharma too. And like, that's that whole other layer there of what we know of. Like, we know the pharmaceutical industry many times. The bottom line is how much money are they going to bring in?
Keeping the business alive.
Shareholders, other things. And they're producing things at a fast rate without collecting good data and not doing good science around it. And that's the controversy around medication, because like sometimes that could maybe create a system where people are like, oh, well, it's just the pharmaceutical industry trying to make money, and like, disorders don't matter and you don't need medication. You just need to like snap out of it and go exercise and go do these things. And I'm like, that could be true, but also there are a whole segment of the population that needs maybe medication and maybe they can benefit from it. Also doing all these other things. Like there's no one size fits all approach to what's going to help people.
A book that helped me the most with ADHD was that Delivered from Distraction book. That's a good one. I should read it again.
Yeah.
It's been a while. Because I remember, like, not just explaining it to you, but tools, right? Like these little tools you find. Like, oh, okay, I do struggle with that, but here's what you do to combat that. And then you try it in your real life, and you're like, oh, shit, this works.
Right.
Let me be more aware of this. Or let me practice little things, because you don't realize one of your symptoms. Like I'll do an example. One that I've in my life have done is the driving. Right? I was always a more active driver. It was kind of common amongst ADHD people. Right? Anytime I see people go crazy on the road, I'm always like, oh, that's one of the ADHDers, right? One of my fellow ADHDers.
Yeah, the road rager, the impulsivity.
Yeah. I created like this mental game of recognizing like when I would be trying to get ahead for what reason, I don't know. And over time I got better where like I could stick to one lane. Before it was a struggle, right? And I could stick to one lane and go the whole way. Like I could come here from 59 miles away, that's what it was here, and stay in the same lane.
Right.
And I would have never learned that if I didn't like educate myself on these stupid little things that ADHDers do.
Well, that's the thing. Awareness goes a long way. Yeah. Just being able to understand yourself. And I mean, we want to be introspective. That's hard to do, of like knowing why you do the things you do. But a lot of times it does come through education and reading up on things and realizing like, oh, maybe these are some symptoms that I struggle with sometimes. And what can I do to better myself?
Yeah.
And that's what I want for families to be able to know of, like, if something is a mental health symptom, like what does that look like? At what point might they need professional help? And what are other things that they could do to maybe combat those symptoms that is within their own comfort zone and wheelhouse, rather than not doing anything or getting any help, or just like shying away from speaking and
just learning about it.
Just learning about it is
just learning it exists. At least for ADHD. I mean, I don't know. There's so many other mental health things, right? But I know that for that, at least for ADHD, a big part is learning about it. Like depression and all that stuff. I don't know. Everyone experiences it, right? Goes through that. I never experienced it like the hardcore stuff. But again, being self-employed, and there's the downside of the real estate industry. There's a lot of failure. A lot of people don't make it. It sucks. You see people go through, it's depressive.
You hear about suicides that people do because they lost.
Especially during their first mortgage meltdown. Right. People lost families, and you hear about divorces and all things like break apart in that world. I don't know what exactly helps, but that's where mental health, I think, definitely helps people. That if you're going self-employed route, it's like automatic. You're going to be doing some mental health stuff, because if not, it's going to be like way too hard to survive the bad times.
Right. Especially when you're on your own, working on your own.
Something that, opened my eyes just recently, in my 40s, 42, so I think barely like 2-3 years ago, is this idea of happiness, chasing happiness, because that's all I heard my whole life too. My parents, everything, just want you to be happy, just want you to be happy. And I'm still the same way, right? I'll say that about my daughter. I just wanted her to be happy. If you constantly make that like such an important message in life, that you're going to constantly be disappointed, right? Because life isn't about every moment, everything you do is happiness. It's actually not. It's like a grind, which is right? A lot of it is a grind, right? To get up, go to school, go to work. You can be happy about all the different aspects of that, but the reality is you're not happy about every single part, right? Whatever you do for a living, whether you love it, like I love what I do, but definitely not happy about every single part of the real estate. It sucks. A lot of it sucks, actually.
Yeah, it's true. It's the reality of it. And, for me, a lot of times it's maybe not trying to think of, can I be happy or this, but at least for me, it's trying to be in the moment.
Yeah.
Like that's the part that I struggle with, that I'm like, let me be present focused of like what's going on right now and not worry about these other things.
Mindfulness, right? Because that's what mindfulness teaches. Yeah. I think that's what taught me to be that more present. Yeah,
mindfulness, present focus, being in the moment. And like even right now, like having this conversation with you and like doing this podcast, I'm like, I could be worrying about, well, what are we going to be talking about? What are we going to be? I'm like, no, let me just sit down, be in the moment, talk to my cousin who I always talk to outside of this. And then however that flows, it flows. But Fern, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you guys.
Yeah.
I hope you get the message out as much as you can.
Yeah. And that's really what kind of inspired us to have you on the podcast, is like, let's talk to someone that is like friends and family.
College dropout. Just label it the college dropout. No, not the college
dropout. Wasn't never the college dropout.
No, I know, but I'm saying that gets attention.
It does, right?
Because there is a lot of people that can relate to that.
Absolutely. And for me, I know, like,
I'm okay using that term now, because I do see, like, there's a lot of kids that can relate to that and then feel like, oh shit, okay, he's a college dropout. I could do real estate and be, support a life and a family.
And that's the thing. To me, it's not. That doesn't equate to success or not, whatever success even means. Like, but to me, it's like I see you as successful. I'm not talking about like financially successful, but it's like, you marry your kids, you have your house, you're comfortable, you have your needs met, right? Yeah. And it didn't have to be through this like path that I took.
Yeah, I got lucky. Right? So gratefulness is a big one.
Gratitude.
That's helped me a lot too.
Yeah, gratitude.
Like, keep me going through the hard times, I guess. Right. You could say, because I go through ups and downs in the real estate. That helps a lot.
No, gratitude's a big one. And speaking of that, thank you again for being here and having.
Thank you guys for thinking of me.
Absolutely. For more mental health content and resources, please go to puentelab.com. Until next time, thank you.